friendly wager.
We'll be starting in approximately 1 minute. Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and we want to welcome everyone to the first City Commission meeting of 2023. We welcome all those that are in the audience with us, and especially those that are home watching. As we begin our meeting tonight, we want to acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land, inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. As we go through our meeting tonight, may we do so in respect, dignity, patience, and charity toward each other. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the city clerk, who has the honor of installing a new commissioner
I
tonight.
do have the honor. Thank you. And again, congratulations to you, Linda. Thank you for stepping forward. If you would join me at the center of the room, I'll get to do the honors. Be on the official book of Traverse City history. All right, so please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Linda Sue Cobert, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Michigan, in that I will, to the best of my ability, faithfully and impartially, discharge the duties of the office of City Commissioner for the City of Traverse City. Great. If you would sign here, man. That line. No. Thank you again and congratulations. All right, it's official. Do you have a big speech?
No speech.
Okay, all right.
Happy to be here. Lots of work to do. Let's get it done.
All right, that's great.
All right, with that, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ms. Coburn, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call, please.
Yes, good evening, Commissioner Werner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Shamrow, Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Stanley,
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell. Mayor Lewis,
Here.
and last but not least, Commissioner Cobert.
Me, I'm here.
All right, great.
Okay, with that, we have announcements from the city manager, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. A pretty significant event has occurred with the notification by the U.S. Census Bureau of them announcing of the MPOs, the municipal planning organizations, and how they're established. And they have designated now Traverse City and Garfield Township with certain census blocks as an MPO. And so that has meaningful impacts in regard to particularly pinpointing transportation issues, some of the planning that goes with that. I've spoken with the director of MDOT. He has expressed that he thinks it's about a 2-year process, but that this will evolve into, it does require the local governments to vote to be able to come in, and when I say vote, to the city commission, as I understand it. So that we can expect over the next 2 years of working with Networks Northwest and the county and other agencies such as Garfield to follow that process and see where you want to take that. What it also means, though, is the pot of money that's designated for urban areas within the state, that money will now get some additional monies will be split out to our MPO. So it'll be additional funds, transportation funds specifically for our region.
Thank you.
One other thing, you'll see in your agenda packet reports, there's an annual report from the Bijou. Want to make you aware of that, and also that it's been requested to be on the agenda for the 17th of this month. Thank you.
All right. So you may want to hang on to that or give it a quick read and be ready for that meeting. Announcements from the city clerk, please.
Yes, meetings for this week, the week of January 2nd. The Planning Commission is going to meet. That'll be Wednesday, January 4th at 7 p.m. in the second floor training room here in the Governmental Center. The Master Plan leadership team will meet on Thursday, January 5th at 3:30 p.m. also in the second floor training room. Just a couple of community updates due to staffing shortages. The city treasurer's office will have customer service hours from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. through January. And then the city's Christmas tree drop-off site is open for residents. That's at the boat launch in Hull Park. And so we just ask folks to please remember, of course, that they should remove all their decorations and such from the tree so that trees can be recycled and placed back in nature. And that's all that I've got.
Thank you. Okay, with that, while you're on a roll, sir, would you mind doing the consent calendar for us?
Sure. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public can ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed from it and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission. And such requests are automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Item 1, consideration of approving the minutes of the December 19, 2022 meeting of the City Commission. Approval recommended. Item 2, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the transfer of ownership of Class C and SDM liquor licenses with Sunday AM/PM sales, catering, dance entertainment, and specific purpose food permits from CDM Hospitality to Common Good Hospitality, and consideration of authorizing the city clerk to issue the related registration allowing the operation of the licenses and permits at 1115 East 8th Street, Traverse City, Michigan. Adoption and approval recommended. Item 3, consideration of authorizing payment from the Public Art Trust Fund for 4 sculptures to be featured for 18 months as part of the Art on the Trail installation at the end of 10th Street is recommended by the Arts Commission. Approval recommended. And finally, item 4, consideration of readopting the monument policy, which was rescinded when the Public Arts ordinance was adopted, which is a housekeeping matter. Adoption recommended.
We have the consent calendar read to us. Is there any member of the city commission like to have an item removed? Yes, sir.
Item 2.
Item 2. All right. Anybody else? Okay. Anyone from the audience would like to have an item removed from the consent calendar? Hearing none? Okay. I'll entertain a motion, please.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar as amended.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Wilson. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Okay, from the consent calendar, we had item 2 that was removed, which was the consideration of adopting resolution to adopt a transfer of ownership of a Class C and CDM liquor license. Mr. Treadwell, you had this item removed?
Yes. Some time ago, we, both the city and the DDA, embarked on the Healthier Drinking Culture Study to guide our, among other things, how liquor licenses could be allocated in the future of the city, and to look at steps that the city commission, that the DDA, city police, and other entities could take to improve both how our drinking culture locally operates and how the image reflects on our community across the state. I don't want this to become something that is just a study that sits on the shelf, as has been the reputation of, say, the Grand Vision, Your Bay, Your Say, or other studies that we have done over the past decades. Some of the items in that study that were recommended as immediate action steps in terms of updating city ordinances to more clearly reflect where are the best places and distribution of liquor licenses throughout Traverse City, have better understandings of operating hours, particularly as they might interfere with certain neighborhoods, and coordinating with, say, pedicab and other aspects of our drinking culture. Those are all things that were identified as having completion dates of December 2022. That time has come and gone with no action. And for that, I'll personally be voting no on the application of additional liquor licenses until we do make progress on those steps.
As I understand it, also one of the other recommendations in there toward the end was to apply for another grant in order to help to assist in the implementation of such application, or such application was submitted and we did not receive it. I can let you know that I have strongly suggested to DDA and to and our city manager that in the upcoming budget year, we don't wait for grants, we budget to move forward with the study. But until then, that's where we are. I do not disagree with you. We need to move on. It was important. Some of the other studies that you mentioned were not conducted by us. They were conducted by other.
Yes, I'm just saying.
I know what you're
the
saying.
Reputation.
I know what you're
doing the
saying.
study and having it
So with that, I agree with you. We need to implement it. It's one of those things that is strongly on and high on my list that we want to move forward with it, or we just state we're not going to deal with it. I don't think that's the case. So we'll be looking for support from the DDA as well as, to fund the next phase of what we need to get done. So that's where we're at. Meanwhile, we have an application that's in front of us that has followed all the rules and regulations.
Yes.
And until that changes, that's where we are. Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion that the resolution recommending approval of the request from Common Good Hospitality, Inc., Jason Galan, Linda Gallen, Mario Batali to issue to it Class C and SDM liquor licenses, Sunday sales, AM, PM, catering, dance, entertainment, and specific purpose food permits be adopted, and that the city clerk be authorized to issue a liquor license registration to Common Good Hospitality, Inc., for it to operate such licenses and permits at 1115 East 8th Street, Traverse City, Michigan, 49686.
Support.
We have a motion and we have support. Is there anyone from the audience that has any thoughts or wants to share any comments? Yes.
Please come forward to the podium, and I'll state the rules for public comment this evening for everyone. We just ask those that do address the city commission to state their name and address, indicate if they're a city resident, non-city resident, or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And then lastly, we ask that all language be respectful to everyone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jason Gallen. I'm the president of Common Good Hospitality. My wife Linda and I live at 215 East 11th Street. And for those of you who aren't regulars at the bakery, we do everything we can to benefit as many constituencies that the organization is involved in with everything that we do. So we really focus on people as the primary thing. Everyone that works for us earns much more than a living wage. This is based on data published by an economic geographer at MIT, county level data. On top of that, we have a benefit plan that includes health insurance that costs nothing, life insurance, dental insurance, vision, paid time off. We pay 7 holidays a year. Everyone has a set schedule, which anyone that's worked in food service can tell you is the biggest miracle. And if you're full-time, you get 2 days off in a row. So really, what we're trying to do is reinvent what the hospitality industry is. We are completely supportive of this healthy drinking culture initiative idea. We're a European-style bakery, so the times I've been to Europe, beverages are always enjoyed with food, and probably complementary to that. So that's our focus, is finding a beverage program that fits in with the new menu that we're going to offer. I would like to also, while I have a few more seconds here, thank the different departments of the city that have been a part of this. It's been a 14-month project. This started with the planning department and Dave Weston looking at site plan review documents with our architect. We did a water upgrade. The water and sewer department was amazing. Thank you for letting us do surgery on 8th Street. We did a electrical service upgrade to bring in 3-phase power for some of our bakery equipment. TCLP was amazing to work with, kind of held the hand of our electrician who was frankly in over his head, God bless him, and really made that work for us. And then this final step with the city clerk, which sort of came in at the end, and has been wonderful. Like this, I submitted this maybe 3 weeks ago, and this was not on my radar. So thank you very much to the city and each of the departments that were able to review this in an expeditious way. And if you have any other questions while we're here, there's several of the managers and owners are here. I want to make sure that this is something that you're comfortable with. I think this is an interesting part of town where there's a lot of opportunity. It's in a commercial corridor. I would like to talk about paving the alley behind between Titus and
We'll give
8th
you
Street.
another, we'll give you an opportunity.
But we can
for
do that at
later.
a different time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Anybody else from the commission have any more thoughts or comments? Okay. With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Do I do a roll call? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Colbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Werner,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
No.
and Mayor Lewis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm so happy to have this bakery close to my house.
So nice, so nice. My only question is, when are you opening?
Well, 2 weeks from this week.
You can wait, Richard, it's okay.
Okay, never mind, we'll go into that one. Okay. Next, under new business, we have consideration of introduction and schedule of a possible enactment on January the 17th of an amendment to the City Code of Ordinance regarding the outdoor lighting regulations.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt. We skipped past the item under old business, which is the
Oh,
closed
yes,
session.
Well, see, I got so carried away about a bakery being open, I just couldn't handle myself. I'm trying to get there quick. Okay, we have an item that we'd like to go into closed session immediately following public comment on portion of the agenda. You have an enclosed, you have a motion there that would allow us to do so. We can have a motion, please.
I move that the city commission enter into closed session immediately following the public comment portion of the agenda to consider purchase of real property pursuant to MCL 15.268E.
A motion?
Support.
Second? Support from Mr. Wilson? Yes.
I didn't have an opportunity to connect with the city attorney earlier today. Our schedules just didn't allow it, but I have a concern that the memo from our city attorney includes more than just what is stated here for public consumption as far as possible purchase of real property. What's in the document is also possible sale of city property. And that's not on the agenda.
That's connected to the purchase. It's all one transaction.
But a sale is much different than a purchase. So I'm very troubled by how this is brought forward without public knowledge.
Well, Then we do is that the possible purchase and sale of real property?
Transfer.
It's not transfer. There is one item that is the sale of property, and there's another item which is the purchase of property. They're two items. They are linked, but they are two items.
Then we can put it, can we just amend the motion to say the possible purchase and sale of property?
You can do it that way. It's all one transaction.
I understand that it is, so we'll take it from there. So someone advise the motion to say that if the person who made the motion and seconded, we'll just redo that and add the word sale and sale.
So Commissioner Treadwell and Commissioner Colbert, you can just simply indicate that you agree with that if you
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir?
So now that we have possible sale of city property, don't we have a process and procedures for the sale of
Oh,
city
come on,
property?
Cam, you know what we're
We
gonna
do.
Okay.
We do.
I'm going to make, okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor of the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
No?
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Werner,
No?
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Mayor Lewis,
Yes?
and Commissioner Colbert.
Yes.
I did just want to, that motion passes, of course. I just wanted to point out that it is expected that the commission may take action when they emerge from closed session. So if that happens, that'll be done back in this room.
Correct. Okay. All right, with that, we go on to new business. Ordinance, consideration of introduction, schedule of possible enactment of an ordinance relating to the outdoor lighting regulations. So please, I guess I'll turn this over to you, Mr. Colburn.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. The staff has been working with information gathered from within the community as well as from a lawsuit that had recently taken place and handled by the courts. And due to comments in regard to the current ordinance as it stood from the courts, the staff has worked on this particular ordinance to make adjustments. Mr. Winter here, as the city planner, is prepared to go over that process and the particulars in regard to the adjustments to the possible adjustments to the ordinance. Mr. Winter.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Sean Winter, City Planning Director. As you're probably aware, in 2017, the city adopted an outdoor lighting ordinance. Prior to that, we did not have one. In this last fall, there was a court case between two neighboring property owners over outdoor lighting as related to that ordinance. The judge in that case identified a number of issues with our lighting ordinance. After that order was granted, the city attorney met with planning department staff to discuss ways that we could correct and improve that language. Most of it was not related to the actual standards of regulating lighting, but the construction of the ordinance and the language within. I just want to point out, because it's been brought up multiple times, this discussion and this effort is not intended to favor any particular party. It's just cleaning up the language as based on the judge's order. And then this is the natural progression of ordinances as such. So in doing so, there was three main points or objectives we were trying to achieve. The first was to address the inconsistencies that are in our zoning standards. Next was to remove some of the subjective standards that are simply unenforceable. And lastly, to provide a more practical, reasonable set of standards for the residents and property owners of the city. So to begin with the addressing the inconsistencies, under Section 3 in exceptions, we have a list of different types of lighting that are completely exempt from the lighting ordinance and the zoning ordinance, or the lighting chapter rather. Specifically, if you look under item 4, it talks about decorative porch and wall lights, low voltage paths, landscaping lighting that is no more than 500 lumens, completely exempt from the standards as it has been interpreted. However, if you go into section 4, when we talk about prohibited lighting, item 2 says that unshielded lights that are more intense than 2,250 lumens are prohibited. So read backwards, unshielded lighting that's under 2,250 lumens would therefore be permitted. And so that's how, since 2017, the planning department has approved and reviewed these plans and standards. And that's how the lighting got approved for the school in the said case that I was mentioning, because it was below 2,250 lumens. So on one hand, we have a blanket threshold for all lighting at 500 lumens, then a more specific threshold at 2,250 lumens for shielding. We felt these two should come into alignment to make it more clear and consistent. So we decided that it may be best to get rid of this call-out that speaks specifically to the unshielding, cut that threshold of 2,250 lumens in half in deference to what the plaintiff has described as her experience dealing with the neighboring lighting. And we landed at 1,125 lumens, or approximately a 75-watt light bulb for things like porch lights and things like that. That was a starting point that the planning staff decided to go with as reasonable. It was brought to the Planning Commission, it was discussed. After the Planning Commission's public hearing, they did deliberate on that threshold and thought about maybe lowering it down to 1,000 lumens, closer to a 60-watt bulb. Ultimately, they kept the 1,125 in the proposed ordinance, but that's something that you may want to consider as you contemplate this, if whether or not that's the proper threshold or not. So that's the main inconsistency that we were trying to address. In terms of subjective standards that are in here, you'll see things that are written like here in item 4, the decorative porch lighting is allowed unless it creates direct glare. So it's like, well, what is direct glare? When we look at the definition, direct glare is visual discomfort. Well, that can mean something different to all of us. From a legal standpoint, that's really hard to enforce. And when you try to enforce a subjective standard like that, that's when you set yourself up for a lawsuit, because there's a lot of room for interpretation in there. Furthermore, in section 5, where we talk about the specific design standards, a lot of these items start with qualifiers that the city attorney felt were putting the city in a difficult position, because it created the opportunity for a lot of loopholes in the implementation and understanding of this. So we proposed getting rid of a lot of those loopholes and just saying any lighting, period, above this newly established threshold would have to meet all these standards, and following these are all the standards. I want to point out here, we did remove this part where it says all outdoor lighting fixtures shall provide 100% cutoff shielding from the horizontal plane, but we actually put it up here in number 2. We just moved that language to number 2 because we were already talking about cutoff shielding. So it gets confusing when you're talking about the same type of regulation in 2 different locations. So that's what we were trying to combine there. The other thing is, with some of these qualifiers, when we say all lamps and luminaires and all outdoor lighting fixtures, when you look at the judge's ruling in this case, he not only bolded and underlined those statements, but went on to define it and saying that although you have these exceptions, the fact that you have these qualifiers and it uses the word all basically eliminates those exceptions. There is no exception. And that's where the reasonableness comes in with this, because at this point, Christmas lights have to be fully shielded within the frame. Otherwise, you're in violation of the zoning ordinance. If you have those decorative Edison string bulbs around your back deck, you're in violation of the zoning ordinance. If you have a porch light like this, or this, or this, or anyone like this, or anyone like this, you're in violation of the zoning ordinance, and you'd be subjected to a municipal civil infraction. And the way our ordinance is written, every day you turn that light on, that's a new infraction. So it becomes an enforcement nightmare for the city. I don't think that's the intent of the ordinance. The ordinance specifically provides exceptions. So we're trying to clean it up so that it can be more legally enforceable. It can be more reasonable to the citizens of the community. We're still protecting the dark sky. We're cutting the threshold for shielding in half, and we're keeping all the other standards in there. So with that, one last thing, when it comes to enforcing this, it would be almost impossible to find out whether these lights are legally non-conforming or not, because we'd have to prove whether or not they were installed before 2017 when this was adopted or afterwards. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer. Again, this was simply a matter of trying to clean up the ordinance, not gut it, like I've been hearing, stuff like that. We want to maintain those protections, but we want to also have an ordinance that we can actually implement and protect the night sky with.
We have not seen a copy of the judge's ruling. If we move forward with this, to set the consideration of this at our meeting on the 17th, and so everybody knows, it's not an official public hearing, but we do allow for public input. So, while we don't call it a public hearing, yeah, and we'll open it up tonight to those that want to give input. Do you have any other further comments you would like to make?
I don't have any further comments. I think that Mr. Winter did a really good job explaining it. It really was an effort to make something more enforceable than it is right now. As it stands, my understanding is that when there's been an enforcement issue, the planning department has sought the assistance of a contracted engineer to try and figure out whether the lumens are correct. and that's not practical. You know, if we can do something and and the other thing about an ordinance is the people that are supposedly being, it is going to be enforced against, they should be able to read it and understand it. And the way that, that it was previously written, it was very hard to understand. So we were really trying to make it more accessible and more enforceable. That was the goal of this tweaking. And, you know, the ordinance has been in place for just a few years. It's a natural progression of an ordinance that you run up against some road bumps, and then you kind of take another look at it and tweak it as you go along. So it's really nothing more than that. It's not, you know, like Sean said, trying to favor any party. It's trying to make it more enforceable.
Yeah.
And I can certainly send out that opinion to the whole
Okay.
commission.
At least we understand the basis for how you made these recommendations and proceeded with that. Any other questions from the city commissioners?
I don't have a question, just a statement. I was in charge of the planning commission when we wrote this in 2017. Professor Dobek was part of that team that worked on it, as well as someone else whose name we are not we're looking for right now, someone who worked in industry. And we were happy with it then. We stood in the parking lot at Costco when there was some question about their lighting at midnight one night, and measured things, and they had all their attorneys lined up, and things I think went the way we wanted them to. When I listened to Mr. Winter explain what happened, many of those things make sense to me, but we have a public relations nightmare brewing right now. It started on Nextdoor, it was on Facebook, and I think the citizens think that we are gutting what was a well-designed ordinance. That includes the editorial from Mr. Dobek in the newspaper on Sunday. I'm wondering if he was consulted on these changes, or if we had any other professional. These are hard things to understand. It makes my eyes roll back just to have to go buy a light bulb with watts and lumens. And even if these changes are all good, I think that we should have some presence of professionals who work in this area in the room, just to make sure that we've done it correctly. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel here. A lot of places have made lighting ordinances that value the dark sky and the health ramifications of that. For me, I'm having a hard time saying yes to this right now because it's such a kerfuffle. And I just want to make sure that the changes are indeed right. And I don't know enough of the science to be sure that that was correct, though I do appreciate your explanations tonight very much. I see that Mr. Dobek is here. I'd be curious about why he has opened this up as something horrible. I'd be interested in his opinion. So I guess that's my question.
Okay. All right. I don't know if there's an answer yet.
Yeah, there might not be.
Okay, so, okay. Yes, sir.
I agree. Like, it's tough. I'm an engineer by training, but not a lighting engineer. But even with that said, looking at the units and units per square meter, flux, flow, light at the source, farther out, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess what I'd like to share, and this isn't, it's not intended to be like speaking down to people or whatnot, but maybe to get everybody close to a same page, and to think of sound instead of light. We wouldn't dream of measuring sound based on the speaker that somebody's hanging on the side of their house for their outdoor speaker. We look at how much sound crosses their property line and leaves their property. And this could be the same and should be the same, in my opinion, for light. It's how much light is leaving the property. So we don't have to get entangled in what are the units of measure, et cetera. It's really just how much light is leaving the property. So whether it's one fixture or 100 fixtures, it doesn't really matter. Whatever they want to put on their building, I mean, that can be addressed as far as dark sky things, but as far as the neighbors and concerns there, we shouldn't care whether it's a 50-watt bulb or a 75-watt bulb, an LED bulb, or a compact fluorescent, whatever it might be. That doesn't really matter, not to the neighborhood. What matters is how much light is leaving the private property and going toward the neighbors, and that can be measured. And yes, it's very easy to Google and find other communities that have addressed this. So I won't be supporting, I know there's not a motion yet, but I won't be supporting moving this forward, because I think, well, yes, this was well-written, well-intended at the time, because of what was on our minds as a city.
You're talking about this time at 20?
Of 2017,
Okay,
whenever
thank
it was written, it was fine. But, and things do need to be updated, but sometimes an incremental change is not enough. And I think this is a time where an incremental change may not be enough, and it might just need rewritten.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I sit on the planning commission, so I've already seen this at 2 meetings. At the first meeting, I said that I have more patience than many folks with boring aspects of zoning ordinances and similar municipal guidelines. I can quote from our sign ordinance for the ordinance that forbids livestock in the city except for the month of August, or for agricultural fairs. But one thing that I've struggled for years to wrap my mind around is lighting ordinances, because as has just been alluded to by Commissioners Gilbert and Werner, there are inconsistencies in how they're measured at the point of source or at some distance away. There's differences in whether you're looking at watts or lumens. Our ordinance also mentions candelas and foot candles. The Garfield Township lighting ordinance talks about Kelvin as a measure of light warmth. So it's not something that I have done a good job of wrapping my mind around. And at the time when this was first brought to me, I said, okay, I don't understand the how and why and the finer details of all these changes, but as long as this is in keeping with the intent section of the ordinance, which is saying things like striving to minimize light pollution and minimize harshly lighted surfaces and dark glare in order to enhance nighttime vision. As long as we are keeping true to the intent section of this ordinance, then it is fine. But since I have learned more from lighting experts and people that have helped draft the ordinance back in 2017, I don't feel that this change is quite in keeping with that intent section. At our second meeting for the Planning Commission, I did propose an ordinance reducing the amount of lumens from 1125 to a lower number. And as a starting point, I would say that if we are going to move forward, that we can, I'd be happy to propose again an amendment to lower that to an additional number. And that could be something so that we do have an enforceable, coherent ordinance on the books, which, given the current legal status, we do not. That doesn't mean that we can't say that this is something that does need to be taken a deeper look at, but I wouldn't want to be at a point where, okay, we've identified that we have an ordinance that is flawed and doesn't meet our goals and ability to enforce it, and we're going to draft a better one, but in the meantime, you've created essentially a grace period where some developer can come in with a site plan that meets one standard, knowing that that standard might be changed, and if they get all their permits in line before we create a revised ordinance, they can do that. And you could have more neighborhood pushback as this school with its lighting has created.
So
I'm gonna go with Lynn.
I disagree with scrapping the 2017 ordinance, and I do agree that you have to have measurable goals. As a teacher, I know you have to do that. And so cleaning up those sorts of things makes a lot of sense. I just don't want us to pass something that has created such a stress in the community that somehow we are not valuing dark skies, and we do, and it's how we approach this. To crack it wide open again, it took a long time to write this ordinance. It seems wrong, and I don't think that the city attorney wants to do that, and I don't think Mr. Winter wants to do that. I just want to make sure that the changes that have been made are good ones. And I myself would like to consult with some folks beyond our city staff to be sure that we've done the right thing.
So how would you?
Professionals, because it's a hard area.
I'm agreeing with, in some way, with all of you that there's some, it's like the question I have here. If I have a neighbor that lives across the street from me that decides it's going to leave his outdoor lights on all night, but I can pull my shades down, I'm across the street, I can close my door so I don't see it, but they're still on. I can stay there, they're aggravating me because I have to close my shades and my doors. Is that a violation of this ordinance right now? And how do you measure? Do you go up and say, well, let's see here, right now, under there, you have an outdoor porch light that everything on the side is wide open glass, and you can see you got a 100-watt bulb in there, you're in violation. Is that how we do it?
Well, like in the case of the court case, as the city attorney mentioned, we have to hire an outside engineer to the tune of about $2,500 every time there's an enforcement issue. In this case, by exempting the low-level house lighting, we can go up there and look at the light. It says right on it, the bulb, typically what the lumens are, what the wattage is, and make that determination. To the previous comment, we do have in here, under number 1, a threshold at the property line that has to be met. So that's part of the site plan review process always when we look at photometric plans. So that is built into the ordinance already.
So, whoa. So they would go, in this case, they go to the edge of that person's property line, like they do in the noise ordinance, and say, what's the light level right here?
Well, it would probably start with looking at the bulb itself. Like I went and looked at my porch lights today, there's 600 lumens. It says right on there, took it out, looked at it, 600 lumens. We'd start there. If it's under 1125, if this was adopted, then they're exempt from that particular one. And that's, again, about a 75-watt bulb. If we're talking about a more intense use, like let's say a school or some sort of commercial use, or maybe someone's really gone overboard, then yeah, we'd have to hire an engineer to go to the property line, and we've done before.
Another thing we do is do nothing and wait until someone takes us to court, right?
I don't see that as a real,
I know it's not.
I
but
know.
it's-
I mean, I guess there's a spectrum of options, right? And do nothing is always on the spectrum. It's always, one end of the spectrum is do nothing. But like I said before, the point of the ordinance, the people that are being regulated ought to know what is expected of them. That's only fair. And the way that it is now, I think that's pretty difficult. If you're reading this, you're going to probably have a hard time understanding what you're supposed to be doing. So the point is to try and always, my philosophy when enforcing ordinances is compliance. It's not to just come down on people and give them tickets to get our $75 fine, right? So if we can achieve compliance through understanding with a clear ordinance, that's the best case scenario.
I totally agree. I went to see Mr. Weston today, and he read one section to me, and
It's right here.
it's like, what?
Yeah, it's the full cutoff
What?
shielding. So
That doesn't mean anything, yeah. People
way-
want to comply. I mean,
Yes.
generally, developers want to comply, and they need to be able to. So I think that means a lot to me. I think that this has held up in court. The court decided in the city's favor on this. But to clarify those sorts of things so that the builder or developer says, just tell me what to do, and you can hand them something that makes sense, that is logical.
Right, and then for staff to be able to enforce it instead of having to hire an expert to come in and measure, that's just not very practical. For a day-to-day enforcement issue, staff should be able to understand it and explain it to people easily and enforce it more easily than that. That's my opinion. If it's important for the city commission that we measure the lumens, then we can continue to do that. It's just not a very practical way to apply an ordinance.
And I would add that it's not just the builders and developers, it's the homeowners and residents that this applies to too. So the homeowner needs to know what they need to be compliant, or, you know, if they're getting a complaint, or we're receiving a complaint from a neighbor, we can explain to them. You know, and it's easy to say, well, your light can't exceed 1125 lumens since it says it on the box. If I go up to them right now, and this is the case with the school right now, because they're working with an engineer to correct the problem per the court's ruling, they have to have full cutoff fixture, right? So what does that mean? Well, it means zero intensity at or above a horizontal plane, 90 degrees above nadar, and limited to a value not exceeding 10% of the lamp lumens, or above 80 degrees. Like, when they were asking Dave, Dave was like, I'm sorry, I can't explain that to you. You know, I shouldn't have to have a physics degree to implement our ordinance. So it is complicated, and we're trying to make it a little more user-friendly for compliance, as the city attorney
Yeah.
indicated.
And what is a homeowner going to do? Under this right now, it's my house. I'm just looking at it. Out of compliance?
I don't know, do you have any kind of porch lights?
Every
like
one
this?
of them.
Then yes, you would be subject to a ticket through a zoning violation.
And then I would say probably 95% of this community is subject to that,
I would be. My Christmas lights would be right now.
depending on the voltage of the bulb that they have in there. Okay. That sounds really good.
May I,
Yes.
the concern is how much light exits private property and goes on to neighboring property. The
Yes.
concern is not what your fixtures look like outside. Yes, the city does have a role in that because we want whatever it is that we want, but the concern is light that goes on to neighboring properties. And even while the discussion's going, I pull it up. So we just need people with science and engineering backgrounds. I don't want to dismiss the work that went into it before, but that's who needs to work on this. Not this body right here tonight, because it's lux, L-U-X. Lumens are meaningless at the property line. It's lux, lumens per square meter, because you cut your square meter, and how much light is coming through that at the property line is lux, L-U-X, and that's what's important, not lumens. So all the talk about lumens, that might be nice because we need to have something to tell builders what to build, but property owners want to know how much lux is leaving their neighbor's property. Thanks.
I also want to say, if you have one of those lighting fixtures, don't go take it off of your house. It's nothing to do with the fixture. So,
I mean, that's why it needs to be relooked at. And as much as I appreciate staff doing it, you better get a little bit more expertise in here than in-house. So I would recommend at this point that we withhold any moving forward until you give enough time, I would say, to find someone that could help you to look at this and say, what is it we're trying to accomplish, really?
and not just one
I would agree.
person. Not
What's
just
coming
one.
across what's coming across the property line, just like the noise ordinance. I agree with you on that one, Tim. It's what's coming across, and if it's below that, great, so.
Dave Weston was going into the minutes from 2017 to see if he couldn't find the name of the person who worked with us besides Professor Dobek
Okay.
at that time.
All right. So is it fair enough to say that we want to send this back to staff for more research before we move forward? I'm looking for, I'm going to say that's a consensus at this point, and we'll just let it go at that. Is that fair enough, Dave? No, your work is fine. I understand where you're coming from. Let's make sure we're, wait, one lux. Oh, now, there's a definition of a lux up there. One lux is 1 lumen per square meter.
Yeah,
I don't
that's it.
understand any of that. Of course, I never got into megawatts either, so that's okay. Okay. Unless you can relate it to gallons of water, I'm in trouble. So, all right. With that, I'll open this up for public input if you want to do that, but know that we're not taking any action tonight and we're not moving this forward. We're going to do some more work. You want to be patient, so it's up to you guys.
And I'll just
What?
repeat the rules for public comment.
The gentleman in the orange hat was up first, so just hang on a second.
So just the rules for public comment for everyone. Please remember to state your name and address, indicate if you're a city resident, non-city resident, or city business owner. We've got a 3-minute time allotment. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. We ask that all language be respectful to everyone, and to make sure that there's a climate where everyone feels comfortable speaking, we ask that there be no reaction to comments given this evening. Thank you.
No applause?
No applause.
No applause.
Sorry.
I will cut it off.
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments from the city. I really had three things. I don't know all the details.
Please remember to introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Randy Smith, 6222 Bunker Hill, Williamsburg, East Bay Township resident. And I was coaching skiing at Hickory Hills and got a little wet tonight, so I'm still drying out. I didn't see a public process involved, and I didn't really hear much of one. My three things are where's the public process in this, and I think you've described it, so this is sort of, it's just me. This is a forever ordinance kind of thing. You raise the rate of the amount of light that leaves the property line. It affects me in Williamsburg, and it affects at least every resident that's impacted by it. And it's the impact beyond, it's the observatory. I've known, I gotta call you Jerry, sorry. Jerry for almost 30 years, and I was appalled when I read in the paper that he wasn't involved with it in the update. And so, no offense to staff, I really appreciate staff's outline. What I saw tonight, I got a lot of good information out of. But please involve the public in the rest of the piece of it, and use some outside help, just like council suggested. And then you won't be having me here coming in and taking up your valuable time. I procured and distributed over 10,000 light bulbs for Traverse City Light and Power in my career. And this is about my 4,000th public meeting. So I appreciate everything that you do. It's not easy, but please try to keep the considerations of the impact. Sometimes they are beyond your direct means. Thank you.
Hi, Kurt Peterson, 1356 Buchan Drive, Traverse City, but that's in Peninsula Township. I'm the one that passed out the little packet for you to read tonight. And I am a former member of the IES, Illuminating Engineering Society of America. So I do know what lux is, I do know what a photon is, I do know what a luminaire is, I do know what foot candles are. I worked at Dow. I was working on specialty optical film for 2 to 3 years. This is my project. Here's a film there's no metal in it whatsoever, but it's almost 99% reflective, which is your aluminum reflector up here is about 95% reflective, so this is a better thing, and we were trying to figure out where in the marketplace we could sell this stuff. And eventually we sold it to 3M, and they figured it out. But if I could just run a simple experiment out front.
I would.
Just to show you what's going on here.
It's part of your 3 minutes.
I know, but you might want to listen longer.
Well, we'll give you
I'm
3
trying to
minutes.
give you some education here.
Well, you got 3 minutes,
I
sir.
know. So we're going to do a little light meter here right now. So what we have right here in our room is 50-foot candles. So that's times about 10 is about 500 lumens. So the proposed ordinance going from 500 to 1125, just think if these walls were glass and you had a residential property right here and you increase these lights by 2x, that's what's going out. And that's what your proposed ordinance says. So you don't have any expertise. Nobody has told you what's going to happen when you go up by 2x. And I think a number of you have realized that. And so you really need some expertise. I think that, Linda, you're saying the same thing. You need to have an expert tell you what are the consequences of this change. And it's a big change going from 500 to 1125. I did a survey of some towns in Michigan, Kalamazoo, Ann Arbor, and Mount Pleasant. Ann Arbor has 680 as their maximum lumens. Ann Arbor and Kalamazoo say you cannot have lighting going off your property.
Sir, you need to speak into the mic so
Okay.
the people at home can hear you.
I speak loud enough, I think, but, so anyway, so those are my comments, and you can read the packet that I gave you. There's more information in there. I've got my phone number on there, my email, if you want to ask me some questions. And I only charge $1,000 rather than $2,500.
Anybody else?
I'm Amelia Hasenorl, 207 North Cedar Street, Slabtown neighborhood, Traverse City resident. I have a couple of photos and an email that I'd like to pass around, if I may. The school lights affecting Slabtown are not low-level decorative porch lights. They are much brighter than the street lights in my neighborhood and comparably to Central Grade neighborhood. They're much brighter. Contrary to the editorial in the Record Eagle, the lights at the school are not in compliance with the current city light ordinance. There's a court order at this time for the school to get these lights within the ordinance within 60 days by installing cutoff shielding to focus their lights downward and keep it on their property. There was nothing in this court case about the current light ordinance that was difficult to interpret or apply. The ordinance was very clear and very straightforward. There was no confusion in that room. There were no inconsistencies in the current light ordinance noted in the judgment. If you'd like to read the judgment, I would be happy to distribute it to you. The email from Mr. Winter dated November 8th, 2021, he himself states that the lights as appearing in the images would be violating the zoning ordinance under section 1375.3. In the memorandum of Mr. Winter's proposal that he showed us tonight that introduced the ordinance changes, he mistakenly calls the school lights in question low-level decorative lights. These lights are 12 to 14 feet tall, and there are 12 of them surrounding the school. They are by no definition low level. He states, according to the current ordinance, even holiday lights would need to be shielded. This is a false statement. Under section 1375.03, exceptions in the current light ordinance, decorative porch lights, holiday lights, seasonal lights, low voltage pathway, and landscaping lights are exempt. Most porch, footpath, and holiday lights are under 500 lumens, and they do not require shielding. To increase the allowable lumens from 500 to 1125 lumens, more than double, and not require shielding, will ruin our night sky view. They'll adversely...
Amelia, excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but your 3 minutes have elapsed, so thank you for your
Okay.
comments.
Thank you, and I really support the current ordinance. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Edward Rowe. I live on 4219 Paperbergs Lane, which is in Acme. So I would like to agree with the comments that have already been made by several audience members and several of the commissioners. I think it's important that we wait and get more input on this ordinance before we proceed. Especially I'm concerned about increasing from 500 to 1125 lumens. More than doubling it is a pretty big jump to make without consulting experts. And I think that there are ways that this ordinance can be clarified without making it less, without allowing more light. I've got an idea for how to do this, maybe not perfect, but I'll pass it around just so you have maybe an idea. And it's very important to me, and I think to a lot of us in the community, as we've expressed, to have a dark night sky, be able to see the stars. I think this is why, part of the reason why tourists love to come up here, what keeps our economy going. So it's important for a lot of reasons. Commissioner Werner made the very good point that we should be looking at what the level of light is crossing property lines and not just lumens, which is in the current ordinance, and I think that should remain in there. And I also think we do need to continue to look at the total amount of light leaving a property that can get not just across the neighboring property lines, but above the horizontal line, which is going to create the light pollution, especially for these shorter wavelength lights, which propagate farther through the atmosphere. We should look at that. And in the new proposal I gave you there, I proposed putting in something limiting the allowed temperature, effective temperature of lights, which is based on science and the Dark Sky Association recommendations. But at any rate, I think this merits further discussion and inclusion of experts, like Dr. Dovek, who originally participated in drafting, and I think he's here tonight is probably about to make some very important comments. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, and I just wanted to let you know I'll distribute this to the commissioners in their email and give it to our city planner too, so that they all have it.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Please.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Jerry Delbeck. I live at 18307 Mission Road. That's Old Mission Peninsula, Peninsula Township, Grand Traverse County. It was Jason Van Brockland was one of them, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, from Nellis Engineering. There were a few others too that
Yeah,
had been put
he was
into
an
that.
engineer, right?
Yeah, he's an electrical engineer. And what's talked about as inconsistencies is a misinterpretation of some things that are in the ordinance between exceptions and those that are.
Sir, please talk to the
exemptions.
commission.
And from the exceptions here, decorative porch lightings at 500 lumens, it was approximately between a 40 and 50 watt light bulb, incandescent light bulb. And if they would, please refrain from using lumens and watts in the same sentence. Wattage is consumption of electricity, lumens is an output. So if you're going to do that, use just lumens, stay away from using watts. Leads to too much confusion there. I actually wanted about 350. I'm the one that wrote several of the ordinances down in Ann Arbor and Mount Pleasant area that have the 680, which to me is a little bit excessive. The decorative porch lights at 500 lumens, we know that decorative porch lights are difficult to try and shield. So there's no way we're going to get people to turn those off, although it would be nice if they did after a certain period of time. I have mine on a motion sensor detector, which works actually wonderfully. But those were hard to regulate, decorative porch lights. There is an exception of holiday lighting that does not have to be shielded. It's under the exemptions. The prohibited lighting, the reason that was put in there as for 2,250, that's approximately a 150 watt spotlight bulb. And Russ Planner Soaring wanted the ability for statues to be illuminated. How do you illuminate a statue from the top down? So you want to illuminate from the bottom up. I wanted to try and keep that down to one 150 watt light bulb. So that was put under prohibited lighting. If it's more than 150 watts unshielded, that's absolutely prohibited. And it was put in there for those of bridges, pathways, and statues. That's up in the allowable lighting ordinances. That's prohibited portions of it. The lighting ordinance does have one spot into it that was put on purpose, and I think everybody's passed it by. I'm not sure why. Just a couple more things. One is with that, under 1375-01, Part D, it allows for the zoning administrator, so long as they abide by the intent of the ordinance, to go outside the standards of the ordinance for different site plans and site plan review. So it allows them to actually move around this ordinance a little bit. So it's a proactive ordinance.
Thank you for your
not a
comments,
reactive
Dr.
ordinance.
Dobek. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be contacted, sir.
Commissioners, my name is Doug McWaters. I live at 431 North Cedar Street, ground zero for the neighborhood. So maybe I'm the first one here. I'm here to support Amelia. I walked over tonight. I do a lot of walking. and I was amazed that if Immaculate Conception was in compliance. It didn't seem like it to me. So I'm here to support her. I appreciate that she stepped up and talked to an organization, a powerful organization above and beyond. For me personally, I get to live in the glare of the Pickleball Association lights. I'm right there. These babies come right in through my window seasonally. Right now it's beautiful. You don't have that option. So this is my chance to say thank you for what you do. It's my opinion. I don't know if I can do anything about my situation. This is aside from the Dark Skies Initiative, which in its own right is important. But thank you again. Appreciate your help, your service.
Hi, I'm Wendy Wildrotter. I live at 216 North Spruce Street in Slabtown, and I just want to say that to me, the issue at Slabtown is significant. It does affect my neighborhood. I mean, it is glaring. I mean, people that come by are shocked when they come from out of state or from a different part of the state. So it's sort of shocking how bright it is there. But my issue really now is it's not about Slabtown, it's not about Immaculate Conception, it's not about Amelia, it's really about Traverse City. And then what happened in Slabtown can happen in every one of your neighborhoods, is what we're really saying. And I think it's really, really important that we take steps back, really think about what this is, because it changes the neighborhood, it changes the feeling of the neighborhood, and I think Traverse City's growing. There's more and more people coming into it. We're new to Traverse City, and it would be really horrible to see the nature of this Traverse City really change. So I hope there will be a lot of consideration into looking at this, and I really do want to thank Amelia for her efforts to bring this to the attention. Otherwise, I never would have thought there was a process for really making a change. So thank you for listening to me.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Laird, and I live at 423 West 7th Street. And when I saw the picture in the paper of your house and the lights and
Ms.
that sort of
Laird,
thing.
if you make
Oh,
sure
I'm
the
sorry.
director comments are here.
Yes,
Thank
sorry.
you.
And that just reminded me, because I live on the West End, when the lighting went in on the West End and made that section of Front Street look like a runway. And just how jarring that was when all that was done, and the difference of walking down 8th Street and the lighting and so on that has happened on that area, which is so much more thoughtful and decorative and so on. And I was looking up the goals and objectives for the planning committee for Traverse City for 2023, and one of them was connecting people with each other and nature. And I'm hoping that that's going to be something that they'll be able to follow through on and reconsider the gutting of this really important ordinance. Thank you.
Hi, Susan Donnelly, 505B 2nd Street, Traverse City. Just comment really. I live downtown and there are lights, but my street's pretty dark except for the two houses directly west of me. One has an ADU with a floodlight shining directly towards my house, and two houses down on the second-story peak of their house, they have a bulb exposed, not shielded, shines directly in my bedroom. And this maybe goes to Richard Lewis. I would like to enjoy my bedroom and the night sky, maybe a full moon and stars, without having to shut my shades. And I don't think I should have to have shadows cast in my home from two neighbors down. That I would like to have their lights stay their lights, not mine. Thank you.
Ms. Donnelly, just for the record, would you, for me, repeat your address,
I'm
please?
sorry, 505B 2nd Street.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jenny Nestor, 209 North Madison Street. I had a little thing written out, but I'm crossing it off, and because several of you have talked about neighborhoods in our town, and that's really what is my deep thought here. This could happen in any neighborhood in this town, and I think we need to make sure that whatever precedent we set here will be a mark for strong and quality neighborhoods. Traverse City is a great town, but if it did not have strong neighborhoods with resident satisfaction and happiness, the city will change. And the dark sky is important. Part of this was melatonin. That is created in your body when it is dark. And if it is not dark, your body has a decrease in melatonin. And scientific studies show that if you have not enough melatonin, it causes quite a few health risks, health concerns. So I think we need to support our neighborhoods. We need to be careful that we can keep as much dark sky as we can. And thank you all for this tough job that you have. I appreciate it.
Thank everyone for their comments. As you can see, we will not be moving this item forward, but requesting more research and more background on this. And I'm hoping somewhere in the very near future, within the next couple of months, that hopefully that could be resolved and be brought back to us. If anything's major is going to change, it'll probably have to go back through the planning commission. So that's where we'll be looking at it. So we'll take it from there. Thank you guys for being here tonight and participating and moving this along. We appreciate it. Thank you for your kind comments. Okay. All right. With that, we are now down to, was there anything else from the commission to brought up at this point? Okay, let's give a couple minutes for those that want to leave, if we don't mind. So just take about a 2-minute break. We'll get down to it. So this is from your country?
This is my father's favorite candy from Latvia.
I'll eat them. I can enjoy it. I think I kind of small.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's great.
And the recipe says a tall tree.
I do, yes.
Now he knows that.
Hello.
I didn't watch it. I just thought I said that.
Okay. I think we're pretty.
Thanks for being here.
Okay. All right. I don't know where he went. Uh-huh.
That's about as far to the bathroom as I got.
Yeah, me too.
Well, okay. Never mind, go. We're on break still.
I'm going to. Apparently, when Congress takes a break to count votes, it spends 45 minutes. Yeah, so.
Here all night.
They were gracious enough to call recess at 5:30. Wonder how long they'll spend on it tomorrow.
Good question. Or do I stop by? Oh.
Well, I want to talk more about your project. I'm really
I
excited.
decided to do something else.
Yeah, I had meant to go, but
She didn't
I
give
had
any
already
details.
dropped
She
it.
just said she's working with you.
Okay.
She's impressed.
High ratings today.
Okay, we are back in session. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We have a number of appointments to be made, most of them because Ms. Walter decided to leave our company, so we need to reestablish things and get folks back into their place. All right, the first one is a consideration of, first of all, to reestablish the ad hoc committee on primary transport. Our 6 months have expired. We'd like to, it's the recommendation that we continue on and have it reestablished for another 6 months. Ms. Walters was on that committee, so we would need one other commissioner to be willing to serve on that committee, so, on that ad hoc committee. So there's a given motion. Myself and Ms. Shamrow are more than willing to continue. So. And I speak on her behalf from last week before she left. How rude.
So just looking for one in addition,
Uh-huh.
willing if nobody's jumping.
Excuse me?
I'm willing if nobody's jumping.
That'd be fine. We need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion that City Commission Ad hoc Committee on Primary Medical Transport be reestablished, consisting of members Mayor Richard I. Lewis, Mayor Pro Tem Amy Shamrow, and Commissioner Mark Wilson, with Mayor Lewis as chair, with the committee to expire July 3, 2023.
Support.
We have motion and support.
And we should have, just as a quick technicality, said July 5th, 2023, so just a couple more.
Okay,
days.
July 5th.
Thanks.
July what?
5th.
2 extra days to get your work done.
Yeah.
I won't be working either one of them, so there you go. Okay. We have a motion and support. Does anyone out there want to talk about appointments, so I don't have to keep asking each time from the public? Okay, then I can just move it on. If you do, just raise your hand and I'll recognize it, or somebody will tell me to recognize it. Okay. With that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Next, from our direction that we would like to create an ad hoc committee regarding regarding developing a complete streets policy. I know Mrs. Shamrow, and I'm just going to say it, that Mrs. Shamrow, Mr. Warner, and Ms. Stanley have indicated that they would like to serve on this committee. They've indicated that to me, and so I'd also recommend that Mrs. Shamrow be chair with that, if that's okay with this board. Need a motion?
Sure. I'll make the motion that an ad hoc committee to review options and make a recommendation regarding the development of a complete streets policy be established, and that Commissioners Tim Warner, Mai Stanley, and Amy Shamrow to be appointed to such committee, with Commissioner Shamrow to serve as chair with the committee to expire July 5th?
July 3rd.
Oh, July 3rd.
Yeah. Thank you, though.
Wait, why is that other one?
The other one had an expiration date of January 5th,
I
and they're
see.
for 6 months.
Okay.
There's logic to all
July
this.
3rd,
Yes.
2023.
Never mind. This is okay. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Support.
Support, Ms. Stanley. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next is we need a city commissioner to serve on the planning commission. Mr. Wilson asked that this be delayed from our meeting back in November until a new commissioner got appointed. So I'm hoping that, I know he desires, my conversation with him, that he would, got other things, Ms. Colbert, I hope that you would
Looks
be
like it's me.
Yeah. You're being hereby
Sure.
railroad.
Yeah, pretty much railroad, but I'll do it.
Okay, thank you. I'd be glad to entertain a motion.
I move that Commissioner Colbert be appointed to a one-year term expiring November 13th, 2023 on the City Planning Commission.
Support. We got a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
First meeting tomorrow.
Can I ask one thing? I will not be here tomorrow. Can Commissioner Wilson go to one more meeting? Or
That's up to you, Jim.
I mean,
Just have them not there, like.
Yeah.
just not be there?
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Next, we need to have a commissioner to serve as our representative on the Brown Bridge Advisory Committee. So is there anyone that would like to do that? I think, Mr. Wilson, that's something that's down your alley with the tribal. Okay.
I'll make a motion that Commissioner Mark Wilson be appointed to a term expiring October 2nd, 2023 on the Brown Bridge Advisory Committee, seat previously held by Commissioner Walter.
Support.
There's a really good picnic at the end of the year on that committee.
that's what I'm doing.
My husband was on that committee.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion. Who made the support, please? I said thank you very much. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Thank you. Next, we need have an appointment to the City Commission as it relates to the Recreational Authority. I'm willing to serve on it, but if there's someone else that would really like to do that, it is a very interesting board. So it's up to you folks.
I move that Mayor Lewis be appointed to a term expiring June 30th, 2023 on the City of Traverse City and Charter Township of Garfield Recreational Authority Board of Directors, seat previously held by Commissioner Walter.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay, it's been given, Ms. Colbert.
Okay.
All right, with that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And Mr. Grollo will have fun arguing with each other again. Next, we need an appointment to fill a slot on the City Commission as representative on the Arts Commission. So,
I have a counter proposal to the proposal.
okay, what's that?
So I currently serve at large. I was appointed to the Arts Commission as a city resident prior to being elected to the City Commission. Commissioner Colbert has expressed interest in the Arts Commission, and so my counter proposal is that she be appointed as the City Commission representative and I continue at large. Therefore, we don't need an ad hoc.
That is brilliant.
That's good.
I'll support
All right.
that motion.
Who's made that motion? She just did, okay. And who supported that? No, that's wonderful.
My name's already in there.
Oh,
Well, that was if we had an ad hoc committee.
Oh, I see, okay,
Right.
got it.
So the motion would be that Commissioner Linda Colbert be appointed as the commissioner representative, and that term expires November 11, 2024.
Okay. Okay,
So
that's
we
the
need to
motion.
find-
So you made that motion, who supported it? Okay,
We'll need to reform the ad hoc in November, but
that's a
that's
year
a
from
different
now.
matter.
Good, take it from there. All right. All those in favor? of the
Well, I
motion?
have I gathered that Commissioner Treadwell made that motion.
No,
Oh,
sir.
you made it, excuse me, okay. And you
Her
seconded it.
alternative was
Okay.
the motion.
Apologies, thank you, all right.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And last is a commission representative on the representative on the Traverse Corporation Coordinated Initiative. Mr. Wilson has been the alternative. I would suggest that he be, if he's willing to be moved up as the primary seat, and if somebody else would like to be the alternative, I think Mr. Treadwell said he would like to do that, that would be fine. Does that work out okay, Benjamin?
Yes.
So that's the suggestion, if that's the motion.
I'll move that Commissioner Wilson be appointed to the remaining term, appointed to the remainder of the term expiring November 13, 2023, as a regular member on the Traverse Transportation Coordinating Initiative, seat previously held by outgoing Commissioner Ashley Walter, and that Commissioner Treadwell be appointed as the alternate.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. But everybody got something to do in all this, and that's great. Okay, thank you very much. We took care of that bit of business. You saw the, there's a number of reports, announcements, and correspondence in through here. Again, recommend that you somehow download the Bijou annual report and put it on your, somewhere else in your files, because it'll be coming back to you, and take a chance to read that. So with that, we are now open to, we have no reserved public comment. I will now open it for general public comment. Anyone from the audience for general public comment? See none, I go back to the mayor and commissioners. Do we have any public comment? Anything you want to bring up?
Well, we've had 2 winters so far. I hope that we do have winter again, because Hickory Hills, as our municipal ski hill, is looking a little sad. And it's hard for our ski team to practice when they're running up the hill in the rain, and they
Yeah.
can't actually ski.
Okay. Very good. I will offer that up sometime in church this week, so there you go. With that, we will now go into closed session. We may or may not come back out and take in any kind of action, so we will not know till we're done. Okay, thank you very much.
We're going to be in the committee room, right next door.
Okay.
Where do we do closed session?
Next door, you do it here. No, this
No.
room is.
It's just,
This room.
it's just this room. Yeah. So you have to bundle up.
And this room is also the best place to watch the ducks in the wintertime.
If you have enough layers on.
It's warmer in here than it is sitting down on the riverbank.
I know, right? You just have to, like this, and then click the arrow and then to the other one.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We've just come out of concluded session, and pretty soon we're going to have a consideration of entering into a cross-purchase agreement with Soft Construction LLC. First of all, a little bit of background. When we first started thinking about, back in the mid-1990s, in the adoption of the 1997 TIF plan, one of the primary objectives of that plan was the construction of 2 additional parking decks in our downtown. One on the east side, which is now the Larry Hardy deck, and then on the west side, somewhere on the west side. Way back when, it was determined that that deck through the brownfield authorities and all that kind of stuff would be located right where it is said on this particular map, Site A. That's where that was supposed to be, in that area. So in the brownfield, we had all that together. The city acquired that particular parcel from Federated, and on Lot I, and then, but the part of I was retained by Federated, and there's another schedule on here that I can show, but I'll get to it in a little bit. The city has purchased the parcel on Lot I, and we now own that. That motion was made back in our meeting in December to go ahead and purchase that through the trust of Mr. Harris, or Lou Ferris. So we own that one. As part of our discussion, as you're aware, at that point, that particular deck, if we were to move forward with that we built, because the tent would still be over, if we were to build a parking deck on that particular lot, we would still be building over the top of I, so that there would be retail establishments all along Front Street, and then parking would be over the top. The height of the decks are, at this point, have always been figured at 57.33 feet. Whether that has to go to a vote or not, we'll have to wait up till the Supreme Court makes that decision. At this particular area, then we came back and we came back and believed that why not think about building over the alley? So we came up with that idea, which means that we needed to acquire lots B, I'm doing this loud enough so these people can hear me, lots B, C, and a portion of D and E. We have acquired D and E. For that, we go to the alley, and we have a verbal discussion with Sox about moving forward and purchasing, which is highlighted in yellow, that portion of D and E to build over the alley. And when you look at the next spreadsheet on the back of there, that would have been option number 6. Now, I'm going to say that I have a spreadsheet that goes a lot further than this. If you want to see all the different options that's been considered since day one, I can give all of those to you and all the little notes that go to you. I just hit all the lines and columns that didn't apply to what we were talking about, but that's more than, I'll give it out. It's for my opinion, it's public information. I'll be glad to give it if you want it. About a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months, Sox construction company came to us with an idea of saying a what if. And that what if is if we were to do a property swap with them. That property swap would be to acquire all of D, E, and F, and also G and H. And as you go through that, that property swap, that all that, is more square footage. On this map here, on the map, you can see all the different parts of square footages that are acquired. When I turn the page over, and hopefully I can do this right, wherever that is. We have one opportunity to build one more deck, and I cannot tell you at this point when that deck will be built. It could be in 5 years, it may be, I don't know, but it's going to have to take some amendments to our current TIF Plan 97, which has been working on, and it's part of our moving downtown forward to look at, but it may make 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years before that happens. That timing is still out there. But one of the biggest things we've had to do is acquire the property and acquire the land so that we could build it. It's one of the major differences that we've had with this particular project versus the other two, is that the other two, the city either owned all the land already, or we owned the majority of the land. If we were to continue with the option number one, you can see what our estimates are that you would have built a deck that would have, and with the deck, you would have gone over with 370 parking spaces. This was the very original proposal. That's for that one property of A and I. Under option 6, which is, there's 5 other options in between all these, we would have built it over the alley. We would have had a parking total spaces on the facility of 505 spaces. And then under the current option, we're looking at, we have the potential of building a facility of 623 spaces. There's 103 spaces already on the site, which is as A, and because of that, that's why you'll see the net in there, because we already have 103. This is how much we would gain. I can go through all the numbers of what we have lost from lease spaces because of economic development of the Forefront Center, and as well as Edgewater that we used to lease, which we no longer do. But again, if we're going to build a deck for the future, we need to do as much as we can, because there won't be, in my humble opinion, and I probably won't be around, but it won't be in my humble opinion that you're not going to have much other chances. You go through all the numbers, and you can look at how much it's going to cost to build a deck today, if those numbers were there at $103 a square foot. You go what other improvements are going to be as it relates to possible alley improvements that we have to do, and as well as undergrounding the light and power utilities. One thing we may not have to do with this option 7 is do the utilities, but we left it in there just in case we need to do something, so we're not shortchanging ourselves. And finally, it was suggested sometime while most people don't look at what it costs to purchase the land, we've been tracking the cost of purchasing the properties. And then we come down to cost per space. Bottom line, by moving forward with this particular option agreement, or this transfer of property agreement, we would be able to build a space, if you just deal with construction alone, of $43,487 per space. This is what the industry kind of uses. But if you throw in the property, it's going to be $51,928 per space. The arrangement with the Sox brothers, or the Sox Construction, is that on or before, probably be January the 30th of this year, the city would move forward with acquiring the lots. Let me get back to where I'm supposed to be. Acquiring the lots of D, E, and F, as well as G and H, for a total of, let me get this down here, for a total of $6,599,340, there or abouts. It may be a little bit changed, but it's all based upon $150 per square foot. We know that that's a fair price because an appraisal was done on this particular piece of property And we believe, it's just an exchange. Also, in that particular area, we would end up, then Sox would also, we would also have to, within 2 days of us actually executing this agreement, we would have to put up a 15% not refundable down payment if for some reason we can't close. I mean, nobody can close, we're not going to, of almost $998,900. Sox will then turn around and purchase our property back from us at $150 a square foot on or before July 1st of 2023 at a cost of $4,913,625. Where we're going to get the funds at, there are funds within our auto parking system that we can use to do this. We will also have to enter into an intergovernmental loan which we have done before with TIF 97 that we'll need to borrow the money for our upfront payment, and which will be paid back once the Sox Corporation in turn buys our property. If for some reason property A and I is not closed upon on July 1st, we'll have to look at our arrangements, but we would then probably put it on the market to sell, and because we will not need it, and we will take it from there. One of the benefits of moving forward this way, that we keep our main downtown area, which is Front Street. We want to continue working on State Street, which we are, that's going to continue, is that retail will be done on both Front Street and on Pine Street. Our goal is also that along State Street here, that we're going to have 100% retail for the garage. We're going to use these properties, and right now, this is what being planned, is to use these properties to do as an entrance into and an exit to the deck and utilizing the alley. If for some reason we do not need to use this as we get it further into the planning, then these two properties can also be sold also, which we will then put it out for bids for whatever we want, how we want to do that. Along the front there would be here. I think I've covered the highlights of what we're going to do. You can ask more questions. The Sox companies will also put a $50,000 refundable down payment for the purchase of this property by that date. We also have that Sox will also remove all the structures that are located on this property and the one structure that's on this property on or before October 31st, 2023. That's what we're going to be entering into the agreement, if that is so the will of the commission. Is there any questions? Did I get all that for you? I'm just asking. You're going to have to write it up. So, okay. Anything I missed? The motion that has been suggested by our attorney is that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the cross-purchase agreement with Sox Construction LLC and C4C Development LLC in an amount equal to $150 per square foot, with the net amount to be paid by the city when all is said and done. That's not in there. Equal to approximately $1,685,712, subject to approval as to its form by the city attorney and to its substance by the city manager, and further that entering into said agreement be contingent upon the execution of an interfund loan with TIF 97 and other necessary funds. So who would like to make that motion while I'm standing up here in front of the mic?
I'm willing to make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Ms. Stanley. Is there any other discussion or comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Warner.
I'm sure you're surprised.
No, I'm not. That's okay, sir.
I'll be somewhat brief, but I'd like to start by thanking Sox entities, brothers, everybody else that works with them, for them. Mostly over the years I've talked to John Sox, but in my opinion, they're doing tremendous work in the city and don't get enough recognition for all the housing that they have built and redevelopment that they have done in the city. So thank you to them for that. Next thing, which I already touched on earlier this evening, is I do believe we're violating our own policy on selling city-owned property, but that's just my opinion. And then moving on to actually the substance of what's here, I guess what really kind of, gets a whatever, bee in my bonnet, is what are we trying to do? We can take it back to earlier this evening, the discussion about light, we'll call it light pollution. And even that discussion was, what are we trying to do? And I'd like to think with that discussion we got to, we're trying to limit light from leaving one private property and entering another. In this case, to me, what we are trying to do is not car storage. What we're trying to do is get people into our downtown. And so if we step back from it, if we had a pile of $32 million instead of the fancy book there on that table, it'd be piled pretty high, but $32 million, that's what we're talking about. So if we have $32 million and 44,000 square feet, empty square feet downtown to work with, what are the options? How do we get people downtown? I mean, if that, I believe that's what the goal is. I'll let you go home and ponder that as homework. Yes, this is one option, but there are many other options, and none of them are discussed. And it doesn't have to be this or that. It can be creative combinations. Maybe out of the 32 million, some portion is spent on a parking deck. And maybe some portion of the 44,000 square feet is used for a parking deck. But maybe some portion could be used for other things that are even better economic development. I don't disagree that some parking is needed, but we don't really think about, and this is where in the closed session I talked about opportunity costs. There are very significant opportunity costs. If we spend the 32 million on this, we don't have that 32 million for other things. Or we could spend 20 million on this and have 12 million for other things. We quibble over 10,000 here, 50,000 there when it comes to housing. 32 million on parking, we're all in, no questions asked. Just think about it. We've got a few months before all this happens, and maybe we have a few years before the construction actually starts. So again, I'm all for the development Sox is doing. I think that's fantastic, and I wish them the best. I'm critical of what we're doing as a city and not thinking through what it is we're trying to do. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get people downtown and then let them leave downtown should they so choose. But there are many ways to do that. And this is just one way. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate Commissioner Werner's points, and my thinking on this is regardless of whether we spend $32 million on a parking deck or $20 million on a parking deck and some other kinds of development downtown, I would prefer to have that parking be on State Street as opposed to Front Street. And this purchase swap agreement allows us to get to that. So to be able to look at opportunities that are the best for the character of our downtown and preserving our Front Street corridor, which truly is the most vital piece of that puzzle, we need to have whatever parking we are going to build on the west end be on State Street. And so that's why I support us moving forward with this initiative.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, as somebody that, I believe I'm still the only member of this board that does not own a car, I walk, bike, or take my canoe to get downtown, or to take the bus. So I don't need a place to store my own car, but if we're looking at the amount of space in both city-owned and privately owned property downtown, particularly within a one-block radius of this area, there is a significant amount of surface parking that could be replaced by a parking deck. We've already lost some, or given up is a better way to say, some surface parking that the city leased to other commercial development. And if we can consolidate more of the parking on the west end in a parking deck, then that allows us to, both as a city and for private landowners in the immediate area, to develop that area that is currently surface parking for other purposes. So we might be, yes, creating parking spaces that don't already exist as room to store cars, but we are reducing the need for as much acreage as we have for surface parking in our downtown, particularly the west end.
Yes, sir, Mr. Wilson.
And then just a question from Commissioner Werner's statement that, in his opinion, we're violating our own policies. Can legal speak to that and assure us that?
Yeah, that's not my opinion. I think that this is an opportunity that came specific to the properties that are within this agreement. And we've done property swaps before, for example, with Light and Power, on different properties for the same reasons. And so I don't see any violation of the city's policies here.
I appreciate Commissioner Warner's desire for more overall vision for our city. I really think we are short on that. I agree with him. But I too think that this is the right way to go at this time to activate more of Front Street with retail and housing. Whether I'd prefer it to be long-term, but I assume there'll be some short-term in there, is a much better idea than thinking that we're going to put a parking deck on Front Street. I think that would be terrible. And so I'm very happy with this swap.
Okay, you've already heard all my stuff. Again, the other goal of this was that we have two parking lots right now that we have declared surplus, which is Lot G and Lot O. We're still working on Lot O. And part of, and we're also looking at what do we want to do in our alley behind Front Street, which is going to take more parking off the system. One of the things that came out of the Moving Downtown Forward discussion and everything that came from that is the need that we needed more parking, we needed to be more concentrated. And it's kind of tough to say, let's just take, I know if we want to do it, we can do that way, but just say we need to have a deck there, but the original goal back in '97 was to put structures to go up so that we can get open surface parking lots into development instead of staying like they are. And I'm sure we can find a picture of way back in somewhere in 91, all the surface lots that were downtown, and look at it today, and we are moving toward that. And I would say that between what was happening in Old Town and also the third deck in there was supposed to be in Old Town, or up in that area. So we've accomplished that. So I think we're getting there. It's a piece at a time. Hopefully, if and when this is going to happen, to be constructed, we can decide whether we want to have a little less cars in there and have housing on top, like there's another spot on Front Street that did that on a private. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but this gives us the opportunity to have those discussions as we move forward. Where the other way is staying with A, I think gives us much less opportunities. So that's my opinion. Much as I can share, I can appreciate your opinion. So, and like my wife, I have opinions she doesn't agree with too, so that's okay. But we still like each other. So, do we have a motion?
We do.
And we have a second. Mm-hmm. Is there any comment from the public? Okay. With all that, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stanley?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Colbert?
Yes.
Commissioner Werner?
No.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
And Mayor Lewis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, with that, that's our business for the evening. I hereby declare our meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I'll put this in this thing so it stands. It fell out. It's just like, it's a magnet.
Oh, yeah.